Brian Giles with Brian Giles MTG. And I'm back with more Lord of the Rings spoilers. We're moving on to the green cards. And trust me, there's some nice cards in here that really need to be talked about. First up is Bag End Porter. A green and 3 for a 4/4 dwarf. Whenever Bag End Porter attacks, it gets +X till end of turn, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. So a legendary creature deck. Sure. Then we have Bombadil's Song. A green and 1 for instant read, target creature control gets +1/+1, gains hexproof until end of turn. The ring tempts you. Yeah, I can do that. We have Brandywine Farmer. A, a green and 2 for a 1/1 halfling peasant. Brandywine Farmer enters the battle or leaves the battlefield, create a food token. Okay. Next up, we have Celeborn the Wise. A green and 3 for a 3/3 elf noble. Whenever you attack with one or more elves, scry 1. Whenever you scry, Celeborn the Wise gets +1/+1 till end of turn for each card looked at while scrying this way. Okay. Next up, we have Chance Met Elves. A green and 2 for a 3/2 Elf Warrior. Whenever you scry, put a +1/+1 counter on Chance Met Elves. This ability triggers only once each turn. Next up is another card that's been talked about a lot, and a lot of people like this card, is Delighted Halfling. Single green mana for a 1/2 Halfling Citizen. Tap it to add a colorless, or tap it to add 1 mana of any color, spend this mana only to cast a legendary spell, and that spell can't be countered. That's dope. Next up, we have Dunedain Rangers. A green and 3 for 4/4 human ranger with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you don't control a ring bearer, the ring tempts you. Next up, we have Elven Chorus. A green and 3 for a enchantment that reads: at the top card of your library, you may cast creature spells from the top card of your library. Creatures you control have tap to add 1 mana of any color. More mana dorks are fun. Next up, we have Elven Farsight. Single green mana, scry 3, you may reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, then draw a card. Next up, we have Enraged Shorn. A green and 4 for a 4/5 tree folk with trample. When Enraged Horn enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. Next up, we have Elvish Restoration. A green and 2 for an instant to read, sacrifice a land. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, instead search your library for up to 3 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Yeah. More land. Next up is Ents Fury. A green and 1 for a sorcery for a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Power 4 or greater than the creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn, and it fights a target creature you don't control. Yahoo! Next up, we have Fall of Gilgalad. A green and 1 for a sorcery enchantment saga that reads: Chapter 1, scry 2. Chapter 2, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. Chapter 3, until end of turn, target creature you control gains 1. When this creature dies, draw 2 cards. And that creature fights up to 1 other target creature. Ouch. Then we have Fangorn Tree Shepherd. He's a beefy 3 green and 4, but he's a 4/10 legendary tree folk. Tree folk you control have vigilance. Whenever one or more tree folk you control attack, add twice that much green mana. You don't lose unspent green mana as steps and phases end. Yahoo! Tree folk commander. Okay, next up we have Galadrim Bow. A green and 2 for an artifact equipment with flash. When Galadrim Bow enters the battlefield, attach up to one target creature you control and untap that creature. Group creature gets +1/+2 and has reach. Equipped for 2. Not bad at all. If we have Galadrim Guide. A green and 3 for a 3/4 elf scout. When it enters the battlefield, scry 2. A lot of the elves will have scry features because Bant scry is a theme for this set. Then we have Generous Ent. A beefy green and 5 for a 5/7 tree folk with reach. Generous Ent enters the battlefield, create a food token, and it has forest cycling for 1. Next up we have Gift of Strands. Green and 3 for an enchantment order with flash. Enchant creature. Gift of Strands enters the battlefield, scry 2. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3. That's kind of fun. Then we have Glorfindel, Dauntless Rescuer. A green and 2 for a 3/2 legendary elf noble. Whenever you scry, choose 1, and Glorfindel, Dauntless Rescuer gets +1/+1 till end of turn. Glorfindel must be blocked this turn if able, or Glorfindel can't be blocked by more than 1 creature each combat this turn. Ouch. Next up we have Last March of the Ents. It's a beefy 2 green and 6. Sorcery, this spell can't be countered. Draw cards equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control, and put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Now think about this. If you have Treebeard out there, you draw 10 cards, and any number of creature cards among those 10 cards you put onto the battlefield. That can certainly be an interesting thing. Next up we have Legolas Master Archer. 2 green and 3 for a 1/4 legendary elf archer with reach. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Legolas Master Archer, put a +1/+1 counter on Legolas. Whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you don't control, with Legolas deals damage equal to its power up to 1 target creature. That's kind of fun. Okay, then we have Long List of the Ents. This is an interesting saga that people have been kind of talking about. Single green mana for an enchantment saga that reads chapters 1 through 6, which is the longest saga I think I've ever seen. Note a creature type that hasn't been noted for the long list of events. When you cast your next creature spell of that type, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Yeah, We have Lothlorien Lookout. A green and 1 for a 1/3 Elf Scout. When Lothlorien Lookout attacks, scry 1. Then we have Many Parting. The green mana for Sorcerer Reads, search your library for a basic land card, put it into your hand. Then shuffle. Create a food token. That's certainly value for your cost. Next up, we have Mariotic Brandybuck. A green and 1 for a 2/2 a legendary halfling citizen. Whenever one or more halflings you control attack a player, create a food token. Then you have Mirkwood Spider. Spiders are going to be a thing. We'll talk about that later. So it's a green mana for a 1/1 spider with Death Touch. Whenever Mirkwood Spider attacks, target legendary creature you control gains Death Touch until end of turn. Next up, we have Mirror Guardian. A green and 2 for a 4/2 dwarf soldier. Mirror Guardian dies, the ring tempts you. Okay. Next up, we have Mushroom Watchdogs. A green and 1 for a 2/2 dog. Sacrifice a food, put a +1/+1 counter on Mushroom Watchdogs, gains vigilance till end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. The food deck makes your dogs bigger. Next up, we have Peregrine Took. Green and 2 for a 2/3 legendary halfling citizen. One or more tokens you created under your control. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus an additional food token are created instead. Next up, we have Pippin's Bravery. A green mana. You may sacrifice your food. If you do, target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. Otherwise, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Yeah. Next up, we have Quick Beam, Upstart Ant. 2 green and 4 for a 5/6 legendary tree folk. When Quick Beam, Upstart Ant, or another tree folk enters the battlefield under your control, up to 2 target creatures each get +2/+2 and gain trample till end of turn. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Next up, we have Radagast the Brown. 2 green and 2 for a 2/5 legendary avatar wizard. Whenever Radagast the Brown or another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is that creature's mana value. You may reveal a creature card that doesn't share a creature type with a creature you control from among those cards, put it into your hand. The rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay, that's a good one. Except we have Revive the Shire. A green and 1 for Sorcerer that reads, turn target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, create a food token. Okay, that's good. Then we have The Ring Goes South, a green and 3. The ring tempts you, then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X land cards, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. Put those land cards onto the battlefield tab, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Shortcut to Mushrooms. A green and 1 for enchantment that reads, Shortcut Mushrooms enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Yeah, okay. If you're working with blink mechanics, that can be fun. Next up, we have Shower of Arrows. Green and 2 for an instant that reads, Target artifact, enchantment, a creature with flying, and scry 1. Yummy. Stew the Conies. A green and 2 for instant read. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to a target creature you don't control. Create a food token. Then you have Woe's Pathfinder. So a green and 1 for 1/1 human shaman. Tap it to add 1 mana of any color. Pay a beefy green and 6. Tap it. Another target creature gets +3/+3 and gains trample till end of turn. So that's all the green cards for this. Next up, we're going to go into the multicolored cards and the artifacts. So we'll see you in the next video.